Have you been told you need to stop doing what you love, whether it's exercise, running, or a sport? Well, here at Dynamic, we don't like that answer. In this podcast, we'll talk to leaders in the health and wellness space from Southwest Florida to get the solutions you need to get you back to doing what you love. Welcome to the Dynamic Naples Podcast. What's going on, Naples? Today I'm coming at you, another solo episode. I wanted to talk about overhydration because this is something I see quite often and very pertinent to Southwest Florida, Florida in general, Southern Florida at least, with the heat and problems with hydration. So yes, overhydration is a thing. People always seem surprised when I tell them that. As humans, we tend to think of things that either like a yes or no, or like a 1 and a 0. Is it good or is it bad? And that's just not how the body works. The body's all about homeostasis, which means maintaining balance. So there's obviously too little water or too much water can cause issues. Dehydration is probably way bigger of a problem. I think people have gotten smarter about it and they're pretty good about hydrating. But sometimes we overdo it and go into too much water. And I'll get into those details in a minute. But I just want to tell a quick little story. A few years ago, I set up a tent and treatment table at the U.S. Open that was in Naples for the pickleball tournament. It was the first one, actually. And by far the number one thing I saw was cramps. Everyone was getting calf cramps. And that is a big-time sign of an imbalance of your water to electrolytes. And that's really what this goes into. So a lot of people were just drinking water, and probably not getting enough salt in their system. And the whole system was out of whack, and it caused severe cramping. So I spent a lot of that day rubbing people's calves and, trying to educate on that. So, okay, the body needs water and electrolytes to conduct electricity. Our bodies actually do conduct enough electricity to light up a bulb, and we need that for muscular contraction. So the body's really good naturally at maintaining balance through the kidneys. So if you have too much water, the kidneys will recognize that, and you'll urinate a little clearer. You'll be dumping water. Or if you have too much salt and electrolytes in your body, the kidneys recognize that, and you start dumping salts, and your urine will be a little darker. So if you're in a salty state, the kidneys send a message to the brain, to the pituitary gland, and then the pituitary gland recognizes what's going on and secretes a hormone called ADH, antidiuretic hormone, which tells the kidney to hold on to some water. Don't urinate so much water out. Remember that for later, because I'm going to talk about the effects of alcohol on electrolytes in water. So for the body to operate, just the normal function and normal muscular contraction, picture a glass full of salt water. Maybe not quite as salty as salt water, but there's a balance between water and salt that you need to just operate. And if you exercise and you're out in the sun, well, you dump out half of that water just in normal usage. Right, so then when you go and hydrate, you filled up that glass back up with water, but the dilution is different, so it's less salty than it was before, unless you take in some salt or some sort of electrolyte supplement. And that is now in a state of what's called hyponatremia, so you're basically in an under-salty state. All right, so when that happens, normally you just urinate and you're fine. But the problem is if we're exercising, this is especially true of marathon runners, they're probably not stopping to urinate, and they're probably just keep hydrating as they're running. They're drinking as they run. That's the issue, and you've probably seen instances of runners collapsing at the finish line. There's been actually some deaths because of it, and that's because of hyponatremia, aka overhydration. So what's going on there? So when you are overhydrated, your body will start to push water from the bloodstream into the cells. So under normal circumstances, about 66% of your water lives within your cells, and then the other 33% is outside the cells and in the bloodstream. So when you're overhydrated, the water goes into the cells. The cells get they expand. Some will even die if they expand enough, but that'll leave you being real puffy. So, like an early warning sign of hyponatremia is that your wedding ring suddenly doesn't fit, or your toes and feet are real swollen. That's a sign of hyponatremia. Also, confusion, headaches, dizziness, nausea, coma is even a possibility because your brain will actually fill up with water. You'll get the hydrocephalus, and that's what can cause coma and death. But the other big one, a big warning sign, is cramping. So how did we get in this state? How did this come to be? So basically in the 1900s, people were told not to drink water during exercise or running. And then in the 60s, I believe it was, Gatorade was invented. And this here in Florida, and a massive push in the hydration industry began. So now we're being told the opposite: hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Well, the answer is probably somewhere in the middle, right? So how do we determine what's optimal? How do we know how much water to electrolytes? Probably the easiest thing to do is go off the color of your urine. You want it to be like a light straw yellow. But if you're an athlete, especially if you're a runner, and you're concerned about this, check out Precision Nutrition. I believe the website's precisionnutrition.com. I'll double check that and put that in the show notes. They have a free test you can take because it takes in all different types of variables like age, sex, gender, activity level, and it will give you sort of recommendations on how to be optimally balanced. So another thing that we're pretty familiar with here in Southeast Florida is happy hour, right? So I mentioned I was going to talk about alcohol and this water to electrolyte balance or imbalance. So what happens to the body when you drink alcohol when it comes to electrolytes? So alcohol crosses the blood-brain barrier and has an effect on the brain and the pituitary gland. So that pituitary gland, which I was saying secretes ADH, that anti-diuretic hormone, the hormone that tells the kidneys to hold on to water, well, it suppresses that action. So you start drinking alcohol, your pituitary no longer secretes that ADH, and the kidneys continue to dump water. Plus, you're taking in a bunch of fluids. So now the kidneys are confused, the whole system's out of whack. And then after you have a few, you're starting to pee a little clearer. I'm sure you've noticed this before. That's the kidneys not doing what their job is to do because the signal is not being sent from the pituitary gland because the alcohol is inhibiting that. So then what happens, you wake up that next day, and then your first urine is really dark, right? So your body's doing its best to restore balance. So you're in a very salty state, and it's just dumping electrolytes. So going back to my full glass of salty water analogy, now that glass is severely depleted. So now you're lethargic because you need that full glass of salt water to run optimally, right? So then you're probably craving something salty. So you go out to brunch and fill yourself up with some salty food, maybe even a Bloody Mary. There's a reason people love Bloody Marys when they're hungover. They're craving that salt. But this is a bit of a roller coaster ride. It's kind of like if you're driving and you're up north and you hit a patch of ice and you spin out of control, and then you overcorrect with the steering wheel the other way, and then you keep overcorrecting back and forth until you finally achieve balance. That's basically what's going on here. You go from dehydrated to and salty to undersalted and underhydrated to salted, then hydrated. So you got going back and forth just in an attempt to best restore balance. So what do you do to sort of accelerate that and make things a little easier on the body? Well, after that first urination, you probably want to have a couple glasses of water, and I'd put a little salt in some of those glasses of water, just a little bit, maybe a teaspoon or so. There are electrolyte replacement packages you can dump into your water. They taste pretty decent. Just watch out. There's a lot of them have a lot of sugar in them. There's one company I really like called Element. That's LMNT. I think they have a lot of different options in terms of flavor, and it tastes really good. And they don't use a lot of sugar, and they do a great job. In fact, I have a scale called a Withing scale, which you stand on, and through impedance, it measures how much water is in your body, so how hydrated you are. And I'll notice always a giant jump in my hydration status when I've had one of these electrolyte packages. So it's a little bit of a sneaky way to get hydrated fast, is add a little salt to your water, use one of these packets. Now, there are people that are salt sensitive and have high blood pressure, so this is where you have to consult with your medical doctor to see if this is safe for you. But if you don't have blood pressure issues, I think this is a great way to stay hydrated. And honestly, I play ice hockey, and about 2 hours before any game I play, I always have a little salt in my water or an element package in my water. And I notice I have way more energy and I play a lot better. So there you have it. That's overhydration, hyponatremia wrapped up for you. So if you're getting some cramping, don't just think I need to hydrate. Think I need to restore my balance. So water and salt, okay? I want to be clear that I'm not saying it's bad to hydrate. You definitely want to hydrate. And underhydration, dehydration is a way bigger problem than overhydration in most circumstances. But there can be too much of a good thing. I want you to think balance and consider electrolyte replacement. So that's what I got for you, Naples. Stay tuned. I have some guests coming up for this month. Please subscribe to or follow us on Instagram. That's where I post blogs, all these podcasts, nutrition, and exercise tips. It's at dynamic.pt. That'll be in the show notes. I will talk to you guys next week. Do you have unexplained pain? Or do you wonder just how healthy you are? When was the last time you had your blood tested? Blood chemistry analysis is a great way to stay ahead of any health conditions, and now you can have control of your health with Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is an incredible company that sends blood tests to your home. You can choose from over 30 different tests, whether that's liver function, testosterone, micronutrient, cholesterol, or C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation. It's sent to you with free shipping, and you get results in 2 to 5 days, no physician referral needed. Use the code DPT20 for 20% off. Go to letsgetchecked.com and use the code DPT20. Did you know that you can get started with physical therapy without a physician's referral? Physical therapists don't just solve pain, we get down to the root cause and keep it from coming back. We also discuss all things health, such as nutrition and lifestyle changes. If you feel that you could use some help, let's get on a free consult call. Go to www.dynamicnaples.com and sign up for a free call. Also, if you like this podcast, please give us a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us spread the message. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.